So first, let me introduce the Kassi service. So it's a web service where people in a small local community can share different kinds of resources, like goods, like physical resources, like services, foods, rides, car seats, stuff like that. So for instance, they can recycle their own furniture, they can co-use, like borrow, rent, lend stuff that they don't need, like every day, like for instance, stuff like tools. Power drill is used in average by 10 minutes in its total lifetime, so it could be used by many people instead of just one owner. So the idea is that you don't have to own anything, everything yourself, but you can also like share something with others. And then you can also ask for help, like services from helping computer problems to walking neighbors' dogs to all these kinds of things. And then finally sharing a ride, for instance, when going to work, it would be like more affordable if there would be many people in the car instead of just one. So the basic idea is we want at the same time we save people's time, we save their money. So that's why they come to the service. But then at the same time, this is good for the environment, recycling, sharing rides, all that stuff. And then also at the same time, the community becomes more social. So people get to meet their neighbors, they get to meet their fellow students, meet new people, and have fun. Basically, this is kind of a win-win-win scenario that we are hoping for. And so, a few images about the service. So basically, in it you see you can either post there what you can offer, like what kind of resources you have, like for instance stuff you have in your closets or skills that you have, or then you can post there like what you need, like I need this right now, if there be someone in this community, help me. And then the transaction takes place. Then we have different kinds of reputation systems, like traditional feedback systems from eBay and likes, so to help. But there needs to be a lot of trust in the community. So if I actually borrow my a power drill from somebody, then they probably expect me to return it in good shape. Then obviously also we're using location technology. So we want to create some sort of a geo-local service and resource directory of this community, so that people can easily see what is available in my community and where it is. Maybe there's a power drill like right next to my door when I'm in search. And then finally we have also this kind of virtual achievement system, which both encourages people, like when they do good stuff in the service, then they get all kinds of rewards, and then also others see them, so they see, hey, these guys are actually like trustworthy, they have lots of badges like this. So we offer this, our business model of the company we have just started is that we offer this for communities like universities or companies or business parks or even cities or congregations for a yearly upkeep fee. And so basically then what is the point for them to buy it? Well, one thing is that these kind of communities are currently striving to make the communities more social and make their people connect more and get like the knowledge transferred. So this is like a very good place where this kind of communication can happen. And they already have all kinds of like forums where people can do this stuff. They are usually very clunky, so our solution is more optimized for that. And obviously also big companies are currently striving to at least in their PR to say how they different ways about how they are saving the environment, and obviously if people are sharing rides when going to work, it's already a big thing, and if they are doing stuff like recycling and thinking green, that's very good for them, and we can offer them all kinds of statistics on how that goes. And obviously then they simply want to make their people happy. Happy worker is probably also a more productive one. So currently our biggest community is in Aalto University. We have a bit over 4,000 students and staff members using it there, and then we already have some other communities, around 20 at this time. The others are just starting, but then we hope that during next year we will have many more communities starting up in Finland and also all over the world. Now, so how did all this started? We were hired in the OtaSizzle project back in 2008 as project researchers, but then that's when I started doing my master's thesis for the project. And the idea was that, so we had this huge 5-year project and a lot of funding there, and the intention was, as Olli explained, to create this kind of a living lab and services that would not be thrown away after a year after they have been prototyped and 20 people have tested them, but instead to have services with thousands of users that people actually use because they want to use them, and then do research on that platform. And then so we developed a platform, and then one of the ideas was some kind of service where people could help each other out. And then we started concepting it, and Kassi was born, and it turned out to be at that time the most successful of the few prototypes that we made in the OtaSizzle, and so currently it's still used by thousands of people. And so, well, we saw that it was really successful, and then in 2010, I think we started thinking like, hey, this is very successful in this university, how could we also take it to other universities or other communities like this? There are thousands of communities like this around the world that would really benefit from something like this. So how should we do it? And then also at the same time, a really important step from our point of view happened that OtaSizzle decided that everything, all its code should be open source. So and from our point of view, that was kind of an important step because from the IPR point of view, then we don't have to like argue and negotiate with the school like how is this divided if we spin it off as a company. So basically, and it was licensed under MIT license, which is about the most free license there is. So basically, at that point, we could just have taken the code and run with it and make everything closed like beyond that. So that's something that we could have done, like, and perhaps many traditional companies would have done, since at least in this web startup world, open source isn't really that common. Like if you look at services like Facebook or LinkedIn or those, none of those are really open source. But we decided at that point that we want to do things a bit differently. And so we decided that we want to create something called an open enterprise. And so I'm going to tell you a bit about the model that we want to go, and we are already at least partly doing it, but there's still a lot of stuff that we need to improve on. Anyway, so in the way I see the open enterprise model is that there's 3 corners or 3 aspects in it, of which, well, one is the code, obviously, our technology, everything is open source. The code of the single platform is open source, but then also the code on top of which you can put the hosting service which hosts like multiple communities, that's also open source, so everything. But then also, well, Olli thought something about data, so there are all kinds of difficulties about opening up the data, and we are trying to think like how to solve them. We probably, as mentioned, we probably cannot just open it for everybody to take, but at least to open it up enough so at least like research parties can have it and benefit from it. And then finally, we also want to open up our process. And so basically, we want everything in our company to be like as transparent as possible. The idea is that instead of like traditional companies have the way that if there is no specific reason to open up some document to everybody, then it should be closed. Then our idea is that if there is no specific reason to close something, then it should be like open by default. Okay, so why are we doing this? Let's start with the code. Well, obviously one important thing in the beginning was that we avoided the IPR hassle, and we were able to actually spin it off as a company. But then there are many other reasons too. Let me tell you an example from the blogging world. So probably everybody knows a service called Blogger, which was started back in 1999 and soon became the most known blogger or blogspot, well, whatever you want to call it, and it became the largest blogging platform there was. And in 4 years it was huge. But then something else came along, a service called WordPress, and they started 4 years later in 2003, And what was really hugely different with their approach is that they actually offered this service. They already had the same hosting platform that Blogger did, but WordPress also offered their code as open source for everybody to take and install on their own server. What happened? Currently, WordPress is approximately powers 10% of all the websites in the world. So it's huge, and the whole economy around WordPress is like multiple times bigger than Blogger. The company themselves, they make more than $10 million a year, and then there are obviously also lots of other companies and like lots of other developers are doing stuff on top of WordPress. So the whole economy has been huge, and they never could have done it had they not been open source. Blogger was already there, that it would have been like really difficult to go there and replace them. But because of this open source and their community, they managed to do that. And so basically, what we want to do is to be the WordPress of kind of online web marketplace community or online sharing sites community. So our idea is that we, well, obviously since many people are thinking what are the open source business models, and obviously our the most business models revolve around services. So us too, we are in a service business. We are not in a license selling business, obviously. So so what we do is we offer we offer hosting, we offer customization of the service, we offer administering it, kind of like off-the-shelf solution for communities like universities or companies. They don't want to hire a person just for like or put someone of their own staff to manage this. It's a lot of hassle, and that person should know the system like very well. And so like if they want to use it as open source, they can, but then it's many times it's simply easier for them to turn for us because we are like professionals in this. We know exactly how this is handled. So just like WordPress, we are planning. We hope to get a huge community around it. So basically, make the platform extendable. So every time somebody needs a customization to the platform, they can just add it. They can just add a plugin, like a new feature there, and use it in multiple different purposes, depending like if it's a company or if it's a university, if it's a city, the needs might be a bit different. So we also like want to get a community around it. So if I tell just one example, when taking this international, we have realized that in different countries, this kind of sharing needs very different kind of tools. Now, because of the research project, OtaSizzle, as Olli mentioned, there's also a connection to Nairobi, University of Nairobi in Kenya. In Nairobi, what's the situation with Kassi is that most people don't have their own computer. It's only a small percentage of people who actually have access to a computer, but everybody has a cell phone. But they don't have a smartphone, they don't have iPhone, they have feature phones, like something that has a browser that's like barely good enough that you can actually browse the web. So, and Kassi doesn't currently, didn't currently work on that kind of a browser. So what they did, there was a student group working in the University of Nairobi, and then since Kassi is open source, they are now developing, or have almost already developed, a version of Kassi that works on a feature phone. And so that's useful for them, and then we also get the returns of what they are building. So that kind of stuff is really important if you actually wanna are gonna take over the world with this kind of thing and really go international. Like when you, the way I see it, for a small startup, your resources are like really limited. There are like three founding people in our team, so we cannot obviously do that much with that team. But then if it's open source, that's suddenly it can be like a lot more. The people who are actually working on the stuff, it can be huge, and then obviously like the resources that you have can suddenly multiply, and that brings all kinds of new opportunities. Since in a startup world, you really have to move fast to make the difference. Quick word on licenses. I'm not an expert in licenses, so I'd love to, if someone of you is, then I'd love to have a talk on what should we exactly do. Currently we have the MIT license. There has been some talk on whether we should have like the So that future work that we do on Kassi should be under GPL instead. The idea is that if somebody we really want to send the message that if somebody does something and adds something to Kassi, then we really want those additions to help to be of the benefit of the whole community, and so we really want them to contribute them back. And MIT doesn't require it, GPL does. That's the way I understand the difference between those. But if there are like some problems that we really should think about before switching, then I'd love to hear about them. Well, that was about the code. Then something about the data. Well, one thing that every startup is doing is to building a platform. I think so. They're building an API, so all the other services can access their data, and obviously we want to do it too. We also want to go beyond just building an API, like restricted API with which different services can access the data, and we also want to be create models for parties like universities or research projects, for example, to access the data better. So I'm sure if anybody has heard of has seen this picture before. This is something that practically everyone who works with startups or knows anything about the startup world really swears by. This is kind of their religion nowadays. There in that world, it's a feedback loop. It's pioneered by a guy called Eric Ries, who invented the lean startup methodology, and basically the idea, and this is about how you should build a company, build a startup. Basically, obviously you're software people, so it's a lot similar to the method of like how people build software these days. So there's instead of like the traditional waterfall model, you should when you get the first idea, then you like build minimum viable product, just good enough, something that you can show to the users, and then you start measuring it, and then you collect the data from it, then you learn from it, then you get new ideas, and then you continue this cycle on and on and iterate. Now, about this, technology startups are really good at the build, at getting the first idea and then building something and creating a product. That's what they are good about, and they are creating a community. But then that's usually when they kind of stops. What they are not really good about is to measure, is to actually collect all kinds of data and to analyze it formally and actually learn from it and get new ideas out of it. That's where startups, that's not like their core competence. That's what researchers do. And that's what they are really good about. At least in OtaSizzle there are lots of researchers who are, but it kind of depends, like obviously some researchers who do a lot of stuff related to technology, they are interested in building products. But then in OtaSizzle we have also lots of researchers who are sociologists or other like soft science researchers who are more about, they want the data, they want to measure it, they want to analyze it, and then they want to make suggestions and new ideas based on it. And I think this is kind of like the ideal situation both for us and for the researchers. There already exists this kind of a platform which can provide data like more openly and freely than Facebook or any other platform ever. And then the researchers have access to it. Then they can take the data, they can crunch it, and then in turn, when they write their papers, we can read them and actually get like really valuable ideas out of them. Because again, we are a really small startup. We have limited resources. We don't have resources to do the measurement, data learning part that as well as we'd like. We have all our time goes to like building the product and turning off the like fires and stuff like that. So basically, again, when working with research projects, like for instance OtaSizzle, we already have had like really valuable stuff coming from sociologists and other researchers in the form of their papers, like how we should actually improve the Kassi, how they go there and they interview the people and tell us like, hey, this is actually something that you have totally missed, you should really change the service in that kind of direction. So that's really the motivation, and the way I see it, it's a really ideal situation for a startup to be in a close collaboration with a research project. There's so much there that both parties can learn about it. Also quickly about our process. So as I mentioned, so basically we have a blog where we try to tell as openly as possible about our stuff. Currently in Finnish, most of the stuff, unfortunately. So we in Google Docs there are all our documents. There are like stuff like even contracts or like business plans or stuff like that. So basically, all other startups can go there and see what we have done and then think like what they learn from there. We have all our issues, in an open issue tracker, and we even have an open calendar. And so the third aspect, like the first two, they bring us a lot of, as I said, the most important thing I see is they bring us a lot of new resources. The open source bring us the community that develops. The data bring us the researchers that give us analyze our data and show us the results. And this also is building something. It's also about community building. We wanna have people who actually, if they look at our documents, they might spot a mistake on that. We are already through our blog. We have gotten lots of partners and lots of people who are interested about us. And also, and it's really effective way to do kind of marketing also. And also when you go to a potential customer and you tell about this transparent process, they're actually like, hey, this is actually probably is a company that isn't really doing that much evil. So you really want to associate with that kind of company. So in that sense, I really think that this kind of untraditional, unconventional way of doing business can be really rewarding for startups. Then also the process has helped us in our internationalization strategy, which is also a bit unconventional probably. It's it's not very common, at least in the web startup world. It's very common in other worlds, like for instance fast food. In fast food, how they go international is they franchise. So that's what we are trying to. So we started from Finland, but already we have partners in many cities in Europe. So they are just people who we have met somewhere who have contacted us. And the idea is that, hey, if you take this service, you market it in your country and you translate it to your language and you manage the community there, then we provide the technology and then we can split the revenue. So again, with this and by our open process, we have managed to get all these partners, and actually there are so many people already working for us and working with us to achieve these common goals. And so this, even though the official startup has just 3 people, we are still able to work in different countries all over the world. And also this is, again, one more advantage that the research project has brought us, as Olli mentioned. So we have been able to go in places like United States and Kenya, Nairobi, and Beijing in China because research project has contacts in universities in them. And obviously, since universities are the ones who are also like potential clients and customers, that's very important for us to have connections there all around the world. Especially when you come from Finland, we really cannot just stay in the Finnish markets. There are 5 million people in Finland. Finland is a small country. So what we really have to do as a startup is to go abroad and go there fast. So, and all this really helps that. That's finally I want to quickly mention also, now I've been talking a lot about advantages in being open source and working with research project and being open in general. Some challenges also quickly that we have noticed. Well, first thing is that we really want to, when we are talking with researchers, obviously there's one more stakeholder, and often there are situations where researchers see, hey, I want this kind of data, could we do this kind of like groups of users so they see different functionalities, and then we really have to think closely whether this suggestion is actually like bad for the users, or because they want to test the user experience so that some users have bad and some users have good, and then they see its implications. And obviously we don't want to offer bad user experience for anyone. So that's kind of, we have to have the balance in there, like how much we can do in collaboration. Then also briefly mention about the data ownership. This is something that we have been talking about a lot. Well, the IPR thing wasn't an issue in our case since it was open source. But then about the data, in the Kassi terms of use, it said that that OtaSizzle owns all the data, and it's still as we have currently changed the terms in a way that OtaSizzle can, if it sees fit, to offer the data to all the, like after the project ends, it can transfer the data to a third party, like a company. And now all the users who are currently using Kassi in all the university have to oblige to those terms of use. Then we also decided that, like, our first idea with the data was that we would completely rely on the research project data and even host everything on the research project server. But then we, after some thought, we decided that it's clearer to have our own company server. So currently, all the Kassi is running on a server owned by OtaSizzle, and all that data is owned by OtaSizzle. But all the other communities that we have currently set up are on our server. So that's like something we really have to. I don't think there are like many projects like this where you actually, like, when you're spinning off the company, you have to think about like how to transfer the data, because usually research projects don't have like that much users, or like thousands of users, a community of thousands of users that you have to transfer from a research project to company. But if you do, then it's surely going to be at least some challenges there. Well, then one thing, even though research brings us resources, I also kind of feel that sometimes researchers, they have to focus on like some small thing, and then they do a lot of stuff, and then they look at theory, like and write paper and publish it, and so the process is kind of long. So that's also like in startup world, you kind of would be, if you have the data and then you have 2 weeks, and then after 2 weeks you should like kind of have a decision on how we should proceed, how we should change, and like it kind of take like 6 months. So in that sense, it's also like balancing between how useful those research results are to us. And then obviously all this openness, helping researchers and being open source, it takes a lot of time. We have to think about how do we open this, where should we put it. So we cannot just dump it somewhere. It also has to be accessible by everyone. Everyone has to know like how do they get it and how do they benefit from it. So we have to take, and obviously we don't have limited resources, so that's also something that's consuming our resources. About being open source, also some challenges. Well, obviously the first one is that somebody might just steal the product and start doing the same thing. I don't really see that as a major threat. Basically, there's well, first of all, there's nothing like that special in our technology, and after all, we are in a service business. Somebody could do it, but then and there are like WordPress. There are other people, other companies that are doing WordPress hosting, but still, it's not like that. Most customers are still relying on the one that is like the original. And everybody knows that the Automatic, the company, is the one who actually founded the WordPress, and the word is out there. And because they are being open, everybody knows about them. So they are kind of claim that they were the first ones to did it. So it's kind of difficult for somebody else to come now and say, hey, we actually did the same thing first, and we have been there for. I'm also very interested in talking about stuff like this with you. Like, do you see this kind of thing a problem with the open source world? I really am pretty new to the open source world. Like before 2010, I hadn't really done anything. I hadn't written any open source code or been there. So I really want to learn more about this world too. Then obviously this is like, at least I have assumed that this is kind of a debate, is like, are the open source systems like more secure or less secure? On the other hand, if the good guys expose the vulnerabilities, then they can be fixed like more quickly. On the other hand, is if there's like some vulnerability, who is a bad guy notices, then he could do like some things and break some communities that our customers are operating. Then one thing about this kind, when you're working in a startup world, is that we cannot do what Apple does. Like we cannot have a big event and where everybody is talking about before what are they going to launch and what are they going to do, and then they have all this surprise. Hey, this is the product that you have been like, and this is something completely new, because everybody knows what we are doing like already. They can read it from our stuff. There's really no surprises, so the marketing has to be different. It cannot like rely on the surprise element or like the mystery like with Apple does. You see that I have iPhone and Mac, so I already like I really also respect like that way that they have managed by their way to create great products, but we just have to find a different way to do all that. And then obviously, just like with research, being open source and thinking about that, it also I feel takes more time than if like being a closed is the easy solution where you don't have to think about anything. But then when you're thinking being open source, then you have to think about like what is there like some problems, and all kind of where do you put it and how do you support the community and all that kind of stuff. But all in all, I still think that the benefits mentioned greatly overcome the challenges. So this has been our model, and we will definitely continue with it. I hope that are interested to hear about like what others here think about this kind of a model.